Hello and welcome to our newscast, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. In the headlines at this hour, U.S. benchmark oil, the West Texas Intermediate crude trades at $48 a barrel on Tuesday local time, the lowest it's been in nearly 6 years. Brent crude is not far behind at $51. Washington urges Tokyo to uphold the Murayama and Kono statements, both of which acknowledge Japan's past wartime atrocities. The current Shinzo Abe Cabinet starts working on this year's statement. And one of the world's biggest electronics show opens its doors in Las Vegas. Unlike previous years, garnering a lot of attention this year are self-driving cars. More coming up. But first, we begin with oil prices. Global crude prices continue to nosedive. U.S. benchmark oil slipped to below the psychologically important $50 per barrel mark on Tuesday, and this is bringing down stocks on Wall Street as well. For more, here's Kim Min-ji.
Another oil shock. Global crude prices plummeted to fresh lows on Tuesday over concerns of oversupply and sluggish global growth. U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate fell 4.2% to about $48 a barrel after dipping below the symbolic threshold of $50 the previous day. Benchmark Brent crude also shed nearly 4% to just over $51 per barrel. Both are their lowest levels since the spring of 2009. Crude prices have slumped almost 10% this week alone. This comes after Saudi Arabia, the biggest OPEC producer, cut its selling prices in Europe in a move that demonstrates a desire to protect its market share. On Tuesday, Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah said the country will maintain a firm will to deal with the challenges posed by falling crude prices, giving no indication that supplies will be cut. The dip in oil prices translated into losses on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 130 points, or nearly 1%, while the S&P 500 also lost about 1% on the back of a sell-off in energy stocks. It was more or less the same in Europe, with markets falling about 1% each. Crude prices have been on a downward spiral since June and have lost more than half their value in that time. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
South Korea's defense ministry published its white paper on Tuesday. It states that North Korea now has the technological know-how to miniaturize nuclear warheads. It's the first time such an evaluation has been made by South Korea. Connie Kim has more.
South Korea says North Korea appears to have made significant advancements in its military capabilities. This in particular in the North's capability to make nuclear warheads small enough to fit on ballistic missiles.
8 years have passed since North Korea carried out its first nuclear test in 2006. Pyongyang's miniaturization of nuclear weapons would appear to have reached a significant level.
Seoul's defense ministry says this could be a major threat as nuclear warheads could reach the U.S. mainland if successfully mounted to ballistic missiles. This marks the first time for South Korea's defense ministry to evaluate North Korea's nuclear technology capabilities. South Korea sees more growth in North Korea's ballistic missile technology. Its Taepodong-2 long-range missile is evaluated to have a range of 10,000 kilometers compared to 6,700 kilometers in the past. North Korea's military has also grown by an estimated 10,000 soldiers from 2012 to a total of 1.2 million. Now that's nearly double the size of South Korea's forces. But what's not changed in the latest white paper was South Korea calling North Korea as its, quote, enemy. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Another worrying military development in the north is its cyber army, which has gotten much larger in size in recent years. According to the white paper, North Korea now has a near 6,000-member cyber team focusing on, quote, physical and psychological paralysis inside South Korea. This number is double the agents the North had 2 years ago and almost 10 times bigger than Seoul's cyber workforce. North Korean defectors have said the long-term goal of the regime may be to target telecommunications companies and energy grids in other nations. The new figure comes on the heels of accusations that Pyongyang was involved in the recent hacking on Sony Pictures. North Korea has denied any involvement, though. Now, meanwhile, North Korea has scolded South Korea for doing nothing to stop a group of North Korean defectors from flying more than 500,000 anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border earlier this week. The North's state-run Korean Central News Agency on Tuesday urged Seoul to ban the leaflet drive and blamed the South for not stepping in. Pyongyang went on to say that improving inter-Korean relations cannot be a one-way street and asked Seoul to clarify that it has the will to engage in sincere dialogue. North Korea has been sensitive about this issue, even going so far as to break an agreement to hold high-level talks with South Korea because of them late last year. The U.S. has reiterated that it welcomes Japan's efforts to mend ties with its neighbors. This a day after urging Tokyo to uphold two previous statements that acknowledged past wrongdoings. For the details, here's Lee Ji-yoon.
Heading into 2015, Japan faces a critical year in diplomacy, as this year marks the 70th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. U.S. State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki said Monday that Japan's heartfelt apology would go a long way.
Our view is that the apology is extended by previous Prime Minister Murayama and former Chief Cabinet Secretary Kono marked important chapters in Japan's efforts to improve relations with its neighbors.
Former Japanese Prime Minister Yomiichi Murayama and former Chief Cabinet Secretary Yohei Kono both apologized for Japan's wartime aggression in 1995 and 1993, respectively. The U.S. has been prodding Tokyo to improve its ties with Korea, as Washington wants to strengthen its trilateral alliance in the region to counter China's rise. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said this week that he would, quote, show remorse for Japan's wartime atrocities. That statement will come in August, on occasion of Japan's surrender in the Second World War. However, Abe stopped short of saying whether it would include an actual apology. Japanese public broadcaster NHK reported Wednesday that the government will start working on the statement this month. The team putting it together will include women as well as historians and media personnel. Japan's relations with its neighbors have chilled in recent years as Japan continues to deny responsibility for its past wartime aggressions. Lee Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
In the year 2012 for Korea was at its record high.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul.
Shopping market thinks the true meaning of creation shines through. With better weather conditions, Indonesia resumed search operations for the missing AirAsia Flight 8501 on Wednesday. The search teams will be looking for large pieces of the jetliner which crashed 11 days ago. A U.S. Navy ship participating in the search had spotted two large metal objects via sonar on Tuesday, so the teams will likely try to get to them today. More debris like seats and safety information cards have been collected, but there is still no pickup of pings from the black box. That has left some experts baffled, given that the plane is believed to be in relatively shallow waters between 30 to 40 meters deep. On Tuesday, two more bodies were found, bringing the total to 39, still less than a third of the 162 passengers the plane was carrying. Researchers at Oxford University have begun human testing of a new Ebola vaccine. The BBC reports that the trial is being conducted on 72 volunteers between the ages of 18 and 50. who will receive a second booster shot 1 or 2 months after their first. Initial testing on monkeys provided complete protection against the Ebola virus. The developer of the vaccine, Johnson & Johnson, said it hopes to begin a larger trial in Africa and Europe within 3 months and have the vaccine ready for use in the West African countries by the middle of the year. The World Health Organization says more than 8,000 people have been killed since the outbreak began last year. A small village in rural Kazakhstan is being called the Sleepy Hollow as an increasing portion of the residents fall asleep randomly for hours, some even for days. Doctors don't think it's narcolepsy. Health officials are trying to identify the cause. Kwon So-ah reports.
1 in 5 residents in a small village in Kazakhstan have been randomly falling asleep, including these children barely able to keep their balance and then dozing off. The first case was registered in spring 2013, and now the number of patients has increased to nearly 700.
I was on my way home from school when I stumbled and fell asleep. My friend helped me up and took me home. Then I can't remember.
Patients have been falling asleep in the middle of the day at school, work, or on the street. Some could not be woken up for a whole week. When they wake up, they suffer from drowsiness, memory loss, and even hallucinations. Doctors say many patients have brain edema, a state in which excessive fluid causes swelling in the brain.
All the kids had a CT scan. There's a diffuse brain edema, but there's no deterioration in terms of neurological symptoms. There's no sign of meningitis.
This is why Kazakhstan's health ministry says it has ruled out a virus or bacterial infection. Many believe the condition is linked to steam seeping out of an unused uranium mine in the area, but experts could not find any evidence. Terrified of this mysterious epidemic, almost 3/4 of the village's residents have agreed to pack up and leave. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
In domestic news, the finance industry was once booming, a sector where if you had the right qualities, you could make a fortune in Korea. But now it's become more difficult to see people in the industry make big money. It's seeing people being let go a lot instead. Kim Young-gil has this report.
Since the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the government has repeatedly set the ambitious goal of turning Korea into one of Northeast Asia's financial hubs. Yet latest government data shows the industry is in fact shrinking. Over the past 12 months alone, some 24,000 jobs have vanished from the country's financial sector. Statistics Korea said on Wednesday that the number of people working in the industry fell to 840,000, or about 3% of Korea's overall workforce. That's down nearly a half a percentage point and the lowest in 5 years. Despite the government's plans of turning the financial sector into a major growth engine, it only accounts for 5% of Korea's GDP, down from 6.5% in 2008. Industry experts attribute the decline to poor performances by stock brokerage houses that have been forced to cut back in recent years. Banks and life insurance companies have also sought mergers and acquisitions in the past year as part of restructuring aimed at sharpening their competitiveness. The job market for the financial sector does not look bright this year either. Financial analysts say that although the sector's performance will likely improve this year thanks to a steady economic recovery and the government's deregulation drive, many industry players will have to focus on overhauling their businesses to regain their competitive edge. Experts are calling on the government to speed up streamlining red tape to encourage the financial industry, to provide funds more easily to the corporate sector and reduce its reliance on providing household loans. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
2014 was a great year for Korea's tourism industry, and this year promises to bring more of the same. A report by the Korea Culture and Tourism Institute forecasts that More than 16.2 million tourists will visit the nation in 2015. That would represent a 14% jump from last year's record high of 14 million. By nationality, Chinese tourists are expected to make up nearly half of all visitors this year. The number of Japanese tourists, however, is expected to drop to its lowest point in 12 years, in part due to the weakening Japanese yen. Tech enthusiasts are thrilled about the annual Consumer Electronics Show, which is underway in Las Vegas. In the past, handheld gadgets were all the rage, but this year, autonomous cars may be stealing their thunder. For this report, here's Connie Lee.
Take a look at what's driving this year's Consumer Electronics Show. Or should I say, take a look at who's driving. Well, in this self-driving F-15 Mercedes-Benz, no one is technically driving it. It just carried the president of CES to the show.
You know, it's a very odd feeling to totally give up the wheel to a robot.
The car uses radar and ultrasonic sensors to drive itself.
30 years ago, I was seeing these pictures and was dreaming of these kind of cars.
This car is not only able to determine when it's safe to cross the road, it can even display a crosswalk on the street. It also actively tells you when it is safe to start walking across.
Blue LED lights inside the white leathered interior signal touchscreens that control light and temperature, and you can even watch movies or hold video conferences on these swirling chairs. Driverless cars are getting a lot of attention this year, with Germany's Audi arriving to Las Vegas by itself from San Francisco. However, there are other automakers emphasizing their cars and their connectivity at the show. The Hyundai automobiles on display here come along with Hyundai's Blue Link smartwatch app. The voice-activated app allows Hyundai drivers to remotely start and stop the engine, lock and unlock doors, turn on the emergency lights, or call for assistance. And BMW has debuted cars that act as their own valet. After dropping off its passengers, these connected BMWs can park themselves upon a command from a smartwatch. However, the most anticipated technology for consumers may be the driverless cars, which experts say could hit the market within the decade. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
And staying in tech news, the fiercest battleground for global TV manufacturers this year is going to be in Asia, with the market expected to grow a lot. Market research firm Display Search says Japan is forecast to have the highest growth rate of TV market at nearly 11%. The researcher attributed the estimated surge to the country's aging population, who spend more time watching TV. The TV market of the Asia-Pacific region, in the meantime, is projected to grow 7%, more than double the global average of 3.2%. The U.S. market is only forecast to grow 0.5% this year. Now, given that both men and women work, it makes sense that married couples would equally share the burden of household chores. But a new report shows that's not quite the case here in Korea. Shin Se-min has the story.
A long-lasting, healthy, and happy marriage requires work, real work. But in Korea, at least, most of that work in the home is being done by women. A report from Statistics Korea includes data on the distribution of home chores among heterosexual marriage couples above the age of 20 in 12 different countries. Using data from the International Social Survey program, the survey took 6 different tasks into account, including grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning, and caring for family members who are ill. Discrepancies could be seen between the participation rates in each of the 12 countries surveyed. But Korean husbands were second to last in terms of pulling their own weight, behind only their Japanese counterparts. Compared to European hubbies, Korean male spouses did just about half the amount of housework. The Korean Women's Development Institute attributes this indifference among Korean husbands to help out at home to the traditional gender roles that are deeply rooted in society. However, they added that the times are changing, and so too should Korean husbands, especially with more women now working outside the home in jobs of their own. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Today in our arts and culture segment, we are going to talk about a trend in musicals staged here in Korea. Apparently, it involves many heels clicking. Im Yoon-hee is here to explain. Hello there, Yoon-hee.
Hello. So last year, thousands of musicals were staged here on the Korean peninsula, and from there, a trend took shape. Now, this trend originally raised some eyebrows, but now it looks like it's here to stay. It's here to stay, at least for the time being. Take a look at this next report.
The musical stage is often filled with unique, odd, adventurous characters. But this season, a specific type of character has been making appearances. The Tony Award-winning musical Laah Hyun-kyung has been enjoying success here in Korea, led by the character Albin, who also happens to be a very flamboyant drag queen.
The outward appearance is male, but inside the character, Albin is very feminine and even motherly.
Recent musicals have included very popular drag queen characters in one of the lead roles, lending to a new trend. Short skirts and high heels, these leading ladies of Priscilla have more sass than the girl next door. And just a few months ago, it brought in thousands of viewers eager to see something different. And late last year, another Broadway hit, the rock musical Hedwig jammed on, its lead character, an East German transgender singer, whose love for all rock and roll music drove her to form a band and allowed her to heal old scars.
You can hear from characters with very unique backgrounds. Through the performance, people can realize their desires, and so this inspiration is becoming very popular.
And of course, the lead character, passionate drag queen Lola, has taken to the stage in the Tony Award-winning musical Kinky Boots, showing through the end of February this year. This recent trend has been successfully drawing out curious audience members and looks to continue.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's because of this that it's popular, the musicals are popular, but one thing for sure is that Korean public has become a bit more open to the idea and the concept, right? And we still have a few months or weeks left to catch some of those musicals that you showed us.
Right. So Kinky Boots will be showing, like you heard, through the end of February, and Laah Hyun-kyung will be showing through the end of March. But it's interesting, it's not just limited to Broadway musicals. Homegrown musicals are showing this as well. So last year, Kim Jo-kwang-soo, which is he's a very well-known film director, he actually produced a musical called Two Weddings and a Funeral, and that also addressed, I guess, the stigma behind the gay and lesbian community as well. And so this is an issue that has been appearing more often. It looks like musicals will be staying till at least the beginning of 2015.
And you say it's not limited to the musical industry either.
Right, that's also true. So we actually saw it in the movie industry as well last year. So the release of Man on High Heels was released as a summer blockbuster last year, starring the actor Cha Seung-won. And that was a very popular movie. It brought in $2.5 million in revenue last year. So that was another movie that initially, I guess, met some controversy, but you really did see that audience members did take a liking to it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Yoon-hee, for coming in today and sharing your story with us.
Always a pleasure.
Hello everyone, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. It's a lot colder today than it was yesterday, about 4 degrees colder to be more exact, and highs are going to linger right around the freezing point for today. And cold wave advisories have been issued in some areas, and wind chills are down to about -10 degrees today. And taking a broader look, we can expect clear and sunny skies, although dry conditions are something to keep in mind, especially for those of you along the coastlines. And taking a look at the readings for today, Seoul will be at -2 this afternoon, while the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will be topping out to 4 and 7 degrees respectively. And to other regions, Jeju gets up to 6, while Dokdo hits 1, while Mangkungang drops down to -7 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's ARIRANG News for now. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung in Seoul. I'll be back with all of that and more at 4 p.m. Korea time.